Imagine your life as a house, a sanctuary meant for joy, growth, and fulfillment. But within this sanctuary there are doors hidden, often unnoticed, that invite chaos, doubt, and negativity to take root. These doors aren't physical, they exist in the mind and spirit, left ajar through fear, attachment, and neglect. Today we're not here to fight demons with force. We're here to understand them, to see how they creep into our lives, and to learn how to close these doors firmly and forever. Because once you realize that you hold the keys to your sanctuary, no shadow can invade your light. Fear is a cunning force, an insidious presence that thrives in the shadowy corners of the mind. It is not a tangible thing, not something you can touch or hold, yet it can grip you so tightly that it feels as though you are bound by iron chains. Fear whispers lies into your ear, weaving a web of doubt and hesitation that paralyzes action and stifles growth. It convinces you to shrink from opportunity, to avoid risk, to stay small and hidden in the name of safety. But the truth is, safety is the great illusion. Life itself is an adventure, a wild, unpredictable journey, and fear tries to rob you of your rightful place in it. The power of fear lies in its subtlety. It does not announce itself with fanfare or warning. It sneaks in quietly, disguised as prudence, logic, or even love. It tells you that you should stay in that job you despise because security is more important than fulfillment. It tells you to hold back your feelings because vulnerability might lead to rejection. It tells you not to take that leap because failure is a possibility. And as you listen, you begin to craft a life that is smaller than your potential, narrower than your dreams. What makes fear so deceptive is its ability to masquerade as reason. You might think you're being cautious, practical, or realistic, but often you're simply afraid. Afraid of the unknown, of the unpredictable, of the uncontrollable. Yet life is all of these things by its very nature. To close the door of fear, you must begin by seeing it for what it truly is: a distortion, a trick of the mind. Fear thrives in the realm of what-if, spinning scenarios of doom that rarely come to pass. It chains you to a future that hasn't even happened, stealing your present moment in the process. The antidote to fear is not recklessness, it is courage. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. It is the recognition that fear is a signal, not a stop sign. When fear arises, it is often pointing towards something meaningful, something worth pursuing. The fear of public speaking, for instance, often masks a desire to share your voice and connect with others. The fear of change hides the longing for a better, fuller life. Fear, when understood, can become a guide rather than an obstacle. But how do you move from fear to courage? It begins with presence. Fear cannot exist in the present moment because it feeds on anticipation and regret. When you ground yourself in the now, you strip fear of its power. Practices like meditation, mindful breathing, and grounding exercises are not just spiritual cliches, they are practical tools to disarm fear. Next, you must challenge fear's narrative. Ask yourself, is this fear based on fact? Or is it a story my mind is creating more often than not? You'll find that fear is rooted in assumption rather than reality. The job interview you dread might not end in rejection, it might be the start of a new chapter. The confession you're afraid to make might not lead to heartbreak, it might deepen a connection. By questioning fear's stories, you create space for possibility. Equally important is the role of action. Fear hates movement. It thrives in stagnation, in the hesitation before the leap. Once you take a step, no matter how small, fear begins to lose its grip. Action builds momentum, and momentum builds confidence. Whether it's speaking up in a meeting, booking that one-way ticket, or simply saying yes to an opportunity, each act of courage chips away at the wall fear has built around you. Closing the door of fear also requires faith, not necessarily in a religious sense, but faith in yourself, in the universe, in the idea that you are resilient and capable. Life has no guarantees, but it is rich with potential. Faith reminds you that even if you stumble, even if you fall, you have the strength to rise again. It tells you that the world is not out to get you, but to teach you, to challenge you, and to help you grow. Ultimately, the door of fear is one we leave open ourselves. It is not locked or bolted, it is ajar, waiting for us to notice it and close it. And when you do close it, when you refuse to let fear dictate your choices, something extraordinary happens. You rediscover your freedom. You reclaim your life. Fear, once so loud and overpowering, becomes a faint echo, a reminder of a time when you doubted your own power. In choosing courage over fear, you step into your true self. You realize that the life you've been dreaming of is not out of reach, it is waiting for you on the other side of fear. All you have to do is close the door. Attachment, at its core, is the tethering of your sense of self to something external. It could be a relationship, a possession, a title, or even an idea of who you think you are. It feels natural, even comforting, to hold on to these things because they provide a sense of stability, identity, and control in an unpredictable world. But herein lies the danger. When you anchor your happiness, self-worth, or peace of mind to something that exists outside of you, you hand over the reins of your life to forces you cannot control. The allure of attachment is undeniable. A beloved object, a cherished relationship, or a hard-earned status can bring immense joy. But the same things can also become traps. The object might break or lose its value, and the relationship might change or end. The title might be stripped away or fail to fulfill you. And when these things inevitably shift, as everything in life does, you are left clinging to something that no longer serves you, desperately trying to hold on to a version of reality that has already passed. What makes attachment so insidious is how deeply it intertwines with your identity. You begin to see yourself as the owner of that car, the partner in that relationship, the holder of that position. When these things are threatened, it feels as though your very existence is under attack. You react with fear, anxiety, or even aggression, all in an attempt to preserve what you believe is you, but the truth is, you are not your possessions, your roles, or even your relationships. You are something far greater and far less definable, a dynamic, ever-evolving presence that cannot be confined by labels or belongings. The first step to freeing yourself from attachment is understanding its impermanence. Everything in this world is transient. Objects age and decay. People grow and change. Situations evolve. To attach yourself to something impermanent is to set yourself up for inevitable suffering. This doesn't mean you cannot enjoy or cherish things in life, but you must do so with the understanding that they are not yours to keep forever. They are gifts, experiences to be appreciated in the moment, not possessions to be clung to. Letting go of attachment does not mean detachment in the sense of cold indifference. It means embracing the world fully while knowing you cannot own it. It is the art of loving deeply without trying to control or possess. Imagine holding a butterfly in your hand. If you clutch it tightly, you harm it and lose its beauty. But if you let it rest gently, it can bring joy before it inevitably flies away. Life is much the same. And to loosen the grip of attachment, begin by observing where it exists in your life. What are you afraid to lose? What do you believe you cannot live without? When you identify these attachments, ask yourself why they hold such power over you. Often you'll find that the root of attachment is fear of being alone, of being seen as less, of facing the unknown. Recognizing this fear is the first step toward releasing its hold. Another powerful tool in overcoming attachment is gratitude. When you view the things in your life as gifts rather than entitlements, you shift your perspective. Gratitude allows you to appreciate what you have without feeling the need to cling to it. Instead of thinking, "This is mine and I cannot lose it," you begin to think, "I am thankful for this experience. For however long it lasts, this mindset brings peace, even in the face of change or loss." Mindfulness is also essential in breaking the chains of attachment. Attachment often pulls you out of the present moment, making you dwell on the past or worry about the future. When you practice mindfulness, you anchor yourself in the now, where attachment loses its power. You begin to experience life as it is rather than how you want it to be. Ultimately, freeing yourself from attachment is an act of self-liberation. It allows you to move through life with an open heart and an unburdened spirit. You stop measuring your worth by what you own or who you're with, and you start seeing your value as intrinsic, untouchable, and eternal. When you let go of attachment, you don't lose anything, you gain everything. You gain freedom, peace, and the ability to experience life in its fullness without the constant fear of losing what you have. Closing the door of attachment is not about rejecting the world, but about embracing it more deeply, without the chains of need or ownership. It is about stepping into the flow of life, where everything is temporary, but everything is precious. When you release your grip on the fleeting, you make room for the infinite, and in that space you discover a freedom beyond anything attachment could ever offer. Neglect is a subtle yet destructive force, a slow erosion that often goes unnoticed until its effects are too glaring to ignore. It is not dramatic or loud, it is quiet, unassuming, and insidious. Neglect begins as small compromises, a skipped meditation here, an ignored feeling there, and snowballs into a life that feels empty, disconnected, and overwhelmed. When you neglect the vital aspects of your inner world, you create a vacuum. And as nature abhors a vacuum, negativity, chaos, and even despair rush in to fill the void. The most tragic aspect of neglect is that it often stems from good intentions. You might neglect your inner peace because you're too busy providing for your family. You might neglect your health because you're working tirelessly to achieve your goals. You might neglect your spiritual growth because you're caught up in the demands of everyday life, but good intentions do not shield you from the consequences. When you place everything else above your well-being, you end up with nothing left to give, not to yourself, not to your loved ones, and not to your dreams. Neglect creates cracks in the foundation of your life, and over time these cracks widen. You may find yourself snapping at those you care about, feeling a constant undercurrent of anxiety, or wondering why nothing seems to bring you joy anymore. This is the cost of neglect. It is not a punishment, but a natural outcome of living out of alignment with yourself. When you fail to tend to your inner garden, weeds inevitably take over, choking out the beauty and vitality that once thrived. Self-awareness is the first step to addressing neglect. You cannot fix what you do not see. Take a moment to pause and reflect. What areas of your life have you been ignoring? Is it your mental health, your physical well-being, your relationships, or your spiritual practice? Often the areas we neglect are the very ones that hold the key to our fulfillment. By shining a light on them, you reclaim the power to change. One of the reasons neglect is so pervasive is that it feels justified in the moment. You might tell yourself, I'll rest once this project is done, or I'll take care of myself when things calm down. But life rarely slows down, and the more you push your needs aside, the more disconnected you become from the present. The truth is, self-care cannot wait. It is not a luxury or an afterthought. It is the foundation upon which everything else is built. Without it, even your greatest achievements can feel hollow. Reversing neglect starts with small, consistent actions. You don't have to overhaul your life overnight. You simply need to start showing up for yourself. Perhaps it's 5 minutes of meditation in the morning or a walk in the evening to clear your mind. Perhaps it's journaling your thoughts or reaching out to someone you trust to share what you're going through. These small acts of care send a powerful message to yourself: I matter. My well-being matters. Mindfulness is an invaluable tool in this process. Neglect thrives on distraction and busyness, but mindfulness brings you back to the present moment, where you can truly assess your needs. When you are mindful, you notice the tension in your shoulders, the fatigue in your body, or the longing in your heart. You become attuned to the signals your inner self is sending and can respond with compassion and care. Another critical step is setting boundaries. Neglect often occurs because you are giving too much of yourself to others or to external demands. While helping others is noble, it should not come at the expense of your own well-being. Learn to say no without guilt. Remember, you cannot pour from an empty cup. Taking time to recharge is not selfish, it is necessary. Neglect also feeds on perfectionism, the belief that you must do everything perfectly or not at all. This mindset paralyzes you, preventing you from taking even the smallest steps towards self-care. Let go of the need to get it all right. And progress, not perfection, is what matters. Celebrate the small wins, the moment you chose to rest, the time you prioritized yourself, the effort you made to reconnect with your inner world. Ultimately, overcoming neglect is about returning to yourself. It is about remembering that you are not just a machine meant to produce and perform, but a living, breathing soul deserving of love and care. When you tend to your inner world, you don't just heal yourself, you transform your entire life. Your relationships improve because you're no longer running on empty. Your work becomes more meaningful because it flows from a place of alignment and purpose. And most importantly, you rediscover the joy of simply being. Closing the door of neglect is not a one-time act, it is a daily practice. It is the choice to show up for yourself even when life is demanding. It is the commitment to nurture your mind, body, and spirit, even when it feels inconvenient. And as you do, you will find that the void left by neglect is replaced with a profound sense of peace, fulfillment, and connection. You will realize that the life you've been searching for was always within you, waiting for you to tend to it. Awareness is the cornerstone of transformation, the light that illuminates the shadows of your life. Without awareness, you are like a ship adrift in the vast ocean, at the mercy of external forces and unconscious habits. Awareness is not merely knowing, it is seeing clearly, perceiving deeply, and understanding profoundly. It is the ability to look at your life, your thoughts, and your actions without judgment or fear, and in doing so, to uncover the truth of who you are and how you live. Awareness is the key that unlocks the doors you didn't even know existed. Demons, in the metaphorical sense, thrive in ignorance. They creep into your life through the unexamined corners, through habits you take for granted and beliefs you've never questioned. These demons are not external entities, but the patterns and mindsets that limit you, the fears and attachments that hold you back, the neglect that slowly saps your vitality. Awareness shines a light on these hidden forces, revealing them for what they truly are: illusions, constructs of the mind that only have power because you allow them to. The challenge, however, is that awareness requires courage. It is not always comfortable to confront the truths you've been avoiding. It can be unsettling to realize that the fears you've lived with for years are self-imposed, or that the attachments you thought were sources of happiness are actually chains. But this discomfort is necessary for growth. Just as the act of cleaning a cluttered room begins with facing the mess, the act of awakening begins with facing the chaos within. And to cultivate awareness, you must first slow down. In the rush of daily life, it is easy to become numb, to move through your days on autopilot without truly experiencing them. Slowing down allows you to tune into the present moment, to notice the thoughts running through your mind, the emotions stirring in your heart, and the sensations in your body. This is where awareness begins, with the simple act of paying attention. Meditation is one of the most powerful tools for building awareness. In meditation, you sit with yourself, observing without judgment. You notice the thoughts that arise, the stories your mind tells, the feelings that come and go. Over time, you begin to see patterns. You notice how fear shows up as a tightness in your chest, or how attachment manifests as a restless longing. These insights are the seeds of transformation. By observing without reacting, you create space between you and your thoughts, allowing you to choose your actions rather than being driven by unconscious impulses. But awareness is not limited to meditation. It can be practiced in every moment of your life. When you eat, do you savor each bite, or are you distracted by your phone? When you speak, are you truly present with the other person, or are you rehearsing your response in your head? Awareness is about bringing your full attention to whatever you are doing, no matter how mundane. It is about living fully rather than merely existing. One of the most profound aspects of awareness is its transformative power. When you become aware of a pattern, you are no longer its victim. Awareness gives you the freedom to choose. You can choose to let go of fear, to release attachment, to prioritize self-care over neglect. You can choose to rewrite the stories you've been living by, replacing narratives of limitation with those of possibility. This is not an easy process, but it is a liberating one. Awareness also brings compassion. As you observe your own struggles, fears, and imperfections, you begin to see that they are part of the human experience. You realize that everyone is navigating their own inner battles, often with the same doubts and insecurities you face. This understanding fosters a deep sense of empathy, both for yourself and for others. It allows you to approach life with kindness rather than judgment, with openness rather than resistance. Perhaps the greatest gift of awareness is the recognition of your own power. When you are aware, you see that you are not at the mercy of external circumstances or internal demons. You are the creator of your experience. You have the ability to close the doors that no longer serve you and to open the ones that lead to growth and joy. You have the ability to step out of old patterns and into a life of intention and purpose. Awareness is not a destination, it is a journey, a practice that deepens with time. It is the ongoing act of waking up, of seeing more clearly, of living more fully. Each moment of awareness is a step toward freedom, a step toward becoming the person you were always meant to be. When you embrace awareness, you embrace life itself, not as you wish it to be, but as it is in all its raw beauty and infinite possibility. And in that embrace you find the courage to transform, to heal, and to thrive. Energy is the currency of life. It fuels your actions, shapes your thoughts, and drives your passions. Everything you do, from the simplest task to your most profound achievements, requires energy. Yet so often this vital force is squandered, scattered across distractions, toxic relationships, and pursuits that drain rather than nourish you. Imagine your energy as a reservoir. When you waste it, you are left depleted, unable to focus on what truly matters. Understanding how to protect and direct your energy is not just a practical necessity, it is a profound act of self-respect and empowerment. One of the primary ways energy is lost is through worry and rumination. Your mind can be a powerful tool, but it can also become a relentless thief of your energy. When you dwell on the past, replaying regrets or mistakes, you expend energy on something you can never change. When you obsess about the future, imagining worst-case scenarios, you give away your energy to events that may never occur. Both are illusions, distractions that pull you away from the only moment that truly exists, the present. The more you allow your energy to be hijacked by these mental loops, the less you have to invest in the here and now, where your power resides. Toxic relationships are another significant drain. Whether it's a friend who constantly complains, a partner who undermines your confidence, or a colleague who thrives on drama, these interactions sap your energy. You may feel obligated to endure them out of loyalty, guilt, or fear of confrontation, but every moment spent in these dynamics is a moment stolen from your growth and well-being. Protecting your energy often means setting boundaries, learning to say no, and walking away from situations and people that do not honor your value. This is not selfish, it is necessary. Your energy is finite, and you must guard it fiercely. Distractions also bleed your energy. In a world of constant notifications, endless scrolling, and competing demands, it's easy to lose hours, even days, to activities that add little to your life. The allure of distraction lies in its immediate gratification. It feels good to scroll through social media or binge watch a series, but these moments often leave you feeling empty, disconnected from your purpose. Distractions are not inherently bad, but when they consume your time and attention, they rob you of the energy needed to pursue your dreams, connect deeply with others, or simply rest and recharge. To reclaim your energy, you must first identify where it is going. Take stock of your day. Where do you feel energized and where do you feel drained? Which activities, people, or thoughts leave you feeling alive and which leave you feeling depleted? Awareness is the first step toward change. Once you see the leaks in your energy reservoir, you can begin to seal them. The next step is intention. Energy, like any resource, is most effective when directed with purpose. Ask yourself, what truly matters to me? What are my values, goals, and passions? When you align your energy with your priorities, you create a sense of flow and fulfillment. Instead of scattering your energy across 100 meaningless tasks, you focus it like a laser on what brings you joy and growth. This alignment is not just efficient, it is transformative. Rest and renewal are equally crucial. Your energy is not infinite, it must be replenished. Rest is not laziness, it is a sacred act of restoration. Whether it's through sleep, meditation, time in nature, or moments of quiet reflection, find ways to recharge regularly. Listen to your body and honor its need for rest. In doing so, you ensure that your energy remains vibrant and sustainable. Physical health plays a significant role in energy management. What you eat, how you move, and how you care for your body directly impact your energy levels. Nourishing your body with wholesome food, staying active, and maintaining a balance between work and rest create a strong foundation for sustained energy. Your body is the vessel through which your energy flows. Treat it with respect and care. Mindfulness is a powerful tool in preserving energy. When you are fully present, you are not wasting energy on regrets or worries. You are not pulled in 1,000 directions by distractions. Instead, you are focused, engaged, and alive in the moment. Mindfulness allows you to direct your energy consciously rather than letting it be scattered unconsciously. Finally, consider the role of joy in your energy. Joy is a multiplier of energy, a force that replenishes even as it expends. When you do what you love, connect with people who uplift you, and engage in activities that spark your passion, you are not just using energy, you are creating it. Joy is not a luxury, it is a necessity for a life well lived. Guarding your energy is not about retreating from the world, but engaging with it more intentionally. It is about recognizing that your energy is sacred, that it fuels everything you are and everything you do. By protecting it, you honor yourself. By directing it, you create a life of purpose and fulfillment. And by renewing it, you ensure that your light continues to shine brightly, illuminating not just your path, but the paths of those around you. What if the struggles you face are not barriers, but divine invitations? We often see hardship as something to escape, as if God has turned his back on us. But what if he is not punishing you? He is preparing you. The trials in your life are not signs of his absence, but proof of his presence, working in ways beyond your understanding. You see, before every great breakthrough there is a test, not to break you, but to awaken you. The waiting, the loss, the isolation, they are not accidents. They are sacred trials designed to strip away the illusions you cling to so you can finally see God's plan for what it is, not a cruel game, but a path to something far greater than you imagined. The question is, will you fight these trials, or will you embrace them as part of the divine unfolding? What if the struggles you face are not barriers, but divine invitations? We often see hardship as something to escape, as if God has turned his back on us. But what if he is not punishing you, he is preparing you? The trials in your life are not signs of his absence, but proof of his presence, working in ways beyond your understanding. You see, before every great breakthrough there is a test, not to break you, but to awaken you. The waiting, the loss, the isolation, they are not accidents. They are sacred trials designed to strip away the illusions you cling to, so you can finally see God's plan for what it is. Not a cruel game, but a path to something far greater than you imagined. The question is, will you fight these trials, or will you embrace them as part of the divine unfolding? Life has a way of presenting us with difficulties, but it is not life alone, it is God's hand at work. When you encounter a trial, the immediate reaction is resistance. You ask, why is this happening to me? But what if that is the wrong question? What if instead of resisting, you were to lean in and ask, what is this trying to teach me? Because every trial has a purpose, and the greatest mistake is to see it as meaningless suffering rather than divine refinement. The first trial you will encounter before your breakthrough is the trial of waiting. Nothing is more unsettling to the human mind than the feeling of stagnation, of prayers that seem unanswered, of a future that refuses to unfold. But have you ever considered that waiting is not punishment? Waiting is growth unseen. Just as a tree takes root before it bears fruit, your faith is taking root in the unseen realm. It is in the waiting that God strengthens your patience, your endurance, your ability to trust beyond what you can see. When you learn to embrace the waiting, you will realize that the delay is not a denial, it is a divine strategy. The second trial is the trial of loss. It is painful to lose something or someone, to feel as if the ground beneath you is shifting. But loss is not destruction, it is pruning. A gardener does not cut a tree to harm it. He cuts it to make it stronger, to allow for greater growth. God removes what cannot go with you to the next level, even when you do not understand it. What you perceive as loss is often divine protection. It is God saying, you are holding on to something that will hinder you, but I have something far greater. The challenge is to trust that in the letting go, you are making room for something better. Then comes the trial of isolation. There are seasons where God pulls you away from the crowd, from the familiar, from the comfort of companionship. And in that solitude you may feel abandoned, but you are not alone. You are being called into deeper intimacy with God, into a space where distractions fade and His voice becomes clearer. The world tells you that isolation is loneliness, but in divine reality, isolation is preparation. So in divine reality, isolation is preparation. Moses had to be alone in the wilderness before he could lead. Jesus himself retreated into the desert before his ministry began. If you find yourself alone, it is not because you are forgotten. It's because you are being set apart for something greater. And here is where the breakthrough begins, not in the moment when everything finally makes sense, but in the moment when you realize that these trials were never against you, they were for you. They were shaping you, refining you, drawing you closer to the very thing you have been praying for. You do not need to wait for the trial to end to feel peace, to feel hope, to feel purpose. Because the breakthrough is not a moment in the future, it is a shift in perception. The moment you stop seeing hardship as punishment and start seeing it as preparation, you step into a new reality, one where God's plan is not something distant, but something unfolding right now. So do not resist the trials, embrace them. Because what you are going through is not the end, it is the very thing leading you to the breakthrough you have been waiting for. Waiting is one of the hardest trials a person can endure. It is in our nature to want results, to seek movement, to crave the certainty of progress. But what happens when the answers do not come, when the prayers seem to go unheard, when the path ahead is obscured by silence? It is in these moments that doubt creeps in, whispering that perhaps God has forgotten you. But what if the silence is not abandonment, but preparation? What if the waiting is not a pause, but a divine process working beneath the surface in ways you cannot yet comprehend? There is a reason why seasons exist in nature. You do not plant a seed and expect to see fruit the next day. There is a period of hidden growth, a time when nothing appears to be happening on the surface, but beneath the soil, roots are deepening, foundations are being established. The same is true for your life. When you are in a season of waiting, it is not because you have been overlooked. It is because God is growing something within you that requires time to mature. If He were to give you what you desire too soon, you might not be ready to sustain it. The weight of the blessing would be too heavy for unprepared hands. But waiting is uncomfortable. It stretches the limits of patience and forces you to confront the illusion of control. You want to move things forward, to take matters into your own hands, to push open doors that have not yet been unlocked. But in doing so, you risk stepping outside of God's timing. And there is nothing more dangerous than receiving something before its appointed time. Think of Abraham and Sarah. They were promised a child, but when the waiting grew too long, they took matters into their own hands, leading to consequences that rippled for generations. God's plan was never in question, but their impatience led to unnecessary struggle. The real challenge is learning to trust that waiting is not wasted time. It is easy to believe that stillness is stagnation, but in reality, stillness is where strength is developed. A tree's roots do not grow deep in the storm, they grow deep in the waiting. The strongest warriors are not forged on the battlefield, but in the seasons of quiet preparation. It is in the waiting that you learn resilience, discipline, and unwavering faith. But waiting is also a test. It reveals the depth of your trust. Do you trust God only when He moves on your timeline, or do you trust Him even when you cannot see what He is doing? Many people say they have faith, but true faith is not proven in moments of clarity. It is proven in the dark, in the silence, in the uncertainty. Anyone can trust God when the blessings are flowing and the answers are clear, but real faith is forged in the wilderness, in the places where you feel forgotten, where the heavens seem silent, where everything in you wants to give up. Yet if you can endure the waiting, if you can hold on to faith even when nothing seems to be happening, you will come to realize something profound. Waiting is not about receiving what you want. It is about becoming who you need to be. God is not just interested in giving you blessings. He is interested in shaping you into someone who can handle them. He is not just concerned with the destination. He is refining your character along the journey. And so the question is not how long must I wait, but who am I becoming in the waiting? Because the truth is you are not being delayed, you are being developed. The waiting is not a prison, it is a sacred space where transformation happens. If you can embrace it rather than resist it, you will come to see that the waiting was never about withholding. It was always about preparing you for something far greater than you ever imagined. Loss is one of the most painful trials a person can endure. It shakes the foundation of your world, leaving you grasping for meaning in the midst of sorrow. When something or someone is taken from you, the natural reaction is to ask, why? Why would God allow this to happen? Why would He take away something so dear, so important, so deeply connected to your heart? But what if loss is not a punishment, but a process? What if, instead of being abandoned, you are actually being refined? What if what you see as destruction is in reality divine pruning? In nature, a gardener does not cut branches from a tree to harm it, but to help it grow stronger. The process of pruning looks harsh. Branches are severed, leaves fall to the ground, and for a time the tree looks bare, stripped of its former glory. But beneath the surface, something remarkable is happening. The tree is redirecting its energy, focusing its strength on the healthiest branches, preparing for greater growth. In the same way, God prunes your life, removing what cannot sustain you in the next season. It is not cruelty, it is care. It is not loss, it is preparation. Yet loss feels cruel in the moment. It is easy to see the absence, but difficult to perceive the purpose. When relationships end, when opportunities vanish, when the familiar is stripped away, it is tempting to believe that something has gone terribly wrong. But what if everything is happening exactly as it should? What if what you are clinging to is actually holding you back? There are things, people, and situations that served a purpose in one season, but cannot carry into the next. God in His wisdom knows what must stay and what must go. The question is, do you trust Him enough to let go? Think of Job, a man who had everything, wealth, family, health, only to have it all taken away. He did not understand why. He cried out in agony, questioning, pleading, longing for an explanation. And yet in the end, what was restored to him was far greater than what he lost. The loss was not without meaning. It was a test, a refinement, a divine repositioning. The same is true for you. You may not see it now, but what feels like the end is often the beginning of something new, something greater. Loss also teaches detachment, not the kind that makes you cold or distant, but the kind that frees you from the illusion of control. When you experience loss, you come face to face with the reality that nothing in this world is permanent. You realize that everything, possessions, relationships, achievements, is temporary. And in that realization there is freedom, because when you stop clinging, when you release your grip, you make space for what is truly meant for you. When you cling, when you release your grip, you make space for what is truly meant for you. But loss is not just about letting go, it is about transformation. When you lose something, you do not just lose the thing itself. You lose the version of yourself that was attached to it. You are forced to evolve, to grow, to become someone new. And that is the hidden gift within loss. It does not leave you empty, it makes you new. It strips away what is unnecessary, revealing the strength, resilience, and faith that were buried beneath comfort and familiarity. So, what if instead of mourning what was taken, you trusted in what is coming? What if instead of resisting change, you embraced it? What if instead of seeing loss as destruction, you saw it as divine redirection? Because in the end, nothing truly belongs to you. Everything is a gift, and every gift has its season. And when one season ends, another begins. The branches that were cut will give way to new growth. The pain you feel now is not the end of your story. It is the clearing of space for something greater. Something you cannot yet see, but something that will in time reveal itself to be the very blessing you have been waiting for. Isolation is one of the most misunderstood trials in life. When you find yourself alone, separated from familiar people and places, it can feel like rejection, like abandonment. You may look around and wonder why certain friends have drifted away, why doors that once seemed wide open have suddenly closed, why the people you thought would always be there have disappeared. But what if isolation is not a curse but a calling? What if the loneliness you feel is not God turning away from you, but God pulling you closer? There is a sacred purpose in being set apart. Throughout history, those whom God has chosen for something great have all gone through a period of solitude. Moses was led into the wilderness for 40 years before he could lead the Israelites to freedom. Joseph was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery and imprisoned, before he was elevated to a position of power. Even Jesus himself withdrew into the desert for 40 days before beginning his ministry. Why? Because isolation is where transformation happens. It is where distractions are removed, where the noise of the world fades, and where the voice of God becomes clearer. But isolation is uncomfortable. When you are alone, you are forced to confront yourself. Without the validation of others, without the distractions of constant activity, you are left with your own thoughts, your own doubts, your own fears. And that is precisely why isolation is necessary. It strips away the false identities, the masks you wear, the roles you play to fit into the world. It forces you to ask the deeper questions. Who am I when no one is watching? Who am I without the applause, without the affirmation, without the external success? Who am I in the silence? In that silence, you will either resist or surrender. Many people run from isolation. They fill their lives with noise, with busyness, with anything that can keep them from facing themselves. But those who embrace it, who allow themselves to sit in the stillness, will discover something profound. They will find that they are not alone at all. They will find that God is there, waiting to speak, waiting to reveal something that could only be understood in the quiet. Isolation is not just about separation, it is about preparation. Sometimes God removes you from people and places because He is preparing you for a new level. The friendships that once made sense no longer align with where He is taking you. The environment that once felt comfortable is no longer the place where you are meant to grow. And so He pulls you away, not to punish you, but to position you, to elevate you, to transform you into the person you were always meant to be. But here's the challenge. Many people mistake isolation for abandonment. They think that just because they feel alone, God has left them. But what if isolation is actually evidence of His presence? What if the reason you are being set apart is that you are being set up for something greater? The truth is, you cannot take everyone with you to the next level. Some people were part of your past, but they cannot be part of your future. Some relationships were meant to be temporary, not permanent. And some seasons of your life require solitude because what God is doing in you is too sacred to be influenced by outside voices. So instead of resisting isolation, embrace it. See it for what it truly is, a sacred retreat, a divine appointment, a space where God is refining you, strengthening you, and preparing you for something greater. And when the time is right, when the transformation is complete, you will emerge stronger, wiser, and ready for the breakthrough that has been waiting for you all along. Breakthrough is often imagined as a single moment, a grand unveiling where everything suddenly makes sense, where the struggle ends and clarity arrives, like the morning sun after a long night. But what if the breakthrough is not a destination, not something waiting for you in the future, but something that begins the moment your perception shifts? What if the trials you have faced, waiting, loss, isolation, were never obstacles but invitations to see differently? The breakthrough is not about escaping difficulty. It is about awakening to the truth that the difficulty itself was shaping you, molding you, preparing you for something far greater than you could have ever imagined. We spend so much time waiting for the external to change, waiting for doors to open, for prayers to be answered, for the weight of hardship to finally lift. But real transformation does not happen when circumstances shift. It happens when you shift. It happens when you stop seeing struggle as something happening to you and start seeing it as something happening for you. The moment you recognize that everything, the waiting, the loss, the isolation, was never meant to destroy you but to strengthen you, that is the moment the breakthrough begins. The world teaches that breakthrough is about success, about finally reaching the mountaintop, about achieving the thing you have been striving for. But God's breakthrough is different. It is not about achievement. It is about alignment. It is about stepping into the version of yourself that He created you to be, about letting go of the false narratives, the fears, the limitations that have kept you bound. It is not about forcing doors open, but about realizing that the door was never locked. It was always waiting for you to walk through in faith. Many people think they are waiting on God, but the truth is God has been waiting on them, waiting for them to surrender, to stop striving, to stop resisting the process, waiting for them to trust that His plan is not delayed, that nothing has been wasted, that every trial was necessary to prepare them for what is next. When you understand this, you stop seeing trials as punishments and start seeing them as training grounds. You stop questioning why it happened and start asking, what did this teach me? How has this shaped me? What strength, what wisdom, what faith do I now carry because of what I endured? Breakthrough is not the moment when the struggle ends. It is the moment when you no longer see the struggle as the enemy. It is the moment when you realize that everything you thought was working against you was actually working for you. The waiting was teaching you patience, endurance, and trust. The loss was clearing space for what was meant for you. The isolation was stripping away distractions so you could hear God's voice more clearly. The trials were not roadblocks, they were stepping stones, each one leading you closer to the person you were always meant to become. And this is the greatest realization of all. You do not have to wait for the breakthrough. It has already begun. It begins the moment you choose to see differently, to trust differently, to surrender to the process instead of fighting against it. You are not where you used to be. The things that once broke you no longer have the same power over you. The fears that once held you back have lost their grip. And even though you may not see it fully yet, even though the outward circumstances may not have shifted, something inside of you has. That shift, that awakening, that is the breakthrough.